Love the show. Sorry to see Kirk Cousins go, but I had to sign the paper too. Can't say as I blame him. But here's something nobody's talking about, and maybe I'm the only one that's curious. What's the status of KJ Osborne? The guy was clutch.
APA and Nordo, it's Jason and Madison. So I would have been all about getting Kirk on a big deal this year if we were ready to make a run, but that's just not the case. I think we haven't rebuilt the roster very well in the draft the last couple of years. So I think the bridge quarterback and quarterback of the future with where this roster is makes sense. Hopefully Kwesi can nail some picks this year. Thanks, guys.
And thank you for all the talkbacks. Free iHeartRadio app, hit the microphone up to 30 seconds, and you're all set and to join 9 to noon. I'm in for PA tomorrow, and you're going to get to hear more of your talkbacks. So free agency is upon us, the frenzy, and it's soak this in, at least from an experience factor, because talking with Gessling about it, how long it's been since the Vikings were on this sort of a free agent shopping spree. You just think about situations where, you get beat on this high-priced guard, you get beat on XYZ offensive player, you bring in the Greg Jennings and the Mike Wallaces of the world. You do some of those things, and maybe going back to 2006, what was it? It was Steve Hutchinson, the poison pill deal. That turned out pretty nice for the Minnesota Vikings and for Steve Hutchinson as well, financially and play-wise. But in the end, not a lot of huge free agent deals, at least maybe from a quantity standpoint. And thus far in free agency, Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, Blake Cashman, John Parker Romo, the kicker. No more Greg Joseph? What about Greg DeLeg? And then Sam Darnold, 1-10, Aaron Jones, 1-7. Those names, I know a lot of people are excited about Aaron Jones. Are you excited? Brett Blakemore, you love Aaron Jones. You loved his time in Green Bay as a massive Packers fan. But now you still potentially get to see him and talk about him on a weekly basis because he's here.
Yeah, I'll get to talk about him more because he's here. Yeah, that one's bittersweet. I can't say I didn't see it coming because anyone before they even pack their bags, get out of Green Bay, I think gets a call from the Purple. But Aaron Jones, all kidding aside and all heel talk aside, he's fantastic running back, fantastic person. I'm very disappointed, and that's the best possible compliment I can give that signing, is that I'm disappointed in it.
Well, he doesn't have as much tread on the tires as you'd expect for a 29-year-old.
Yes.
He just scorches the Vikings every time he plays them. It's like north of 5.5 a carry. Mm-hmm. Doesn't scorch the Vikings the way that he handles the Cowboys. I know that for a fact.
Yes.
Just absolutely just brutalizes Dallas anytime you can get the opportunity. But the run game is, in talking about it yesterday, doing the free agent show noon to 3 and during the Grum slot, if this is the plan that they're going to go, and tons of text messages that I want to get into. I've highlighted a number of them, and a couple of them are really down on the Sam Darnold, and I'm just going to admit the fact that I don't have any interest in splitting hairs about who the bridge, quote unquote, I don't even like saying the term, the bridge QB is going to be and what it means long term for the Vikings. I can't participate in that. Because what it should absolutely tell you is that the Vikings are in to take a massive swing on Thursday night of the draft. One way or another. The only thing that matters on Thursday night that we'll be talking about, and certainly talking with Gessling, holes to fill. What the hell's up with the left guard? Got to figure out the left guard. Got to figure out the cornerback stable. And adding a veteran. I mean, L'Jarius Sneed. I mean, if he's part of the shopping spree, my goodness. But figuring out all of those things, and those things matter into the draft. The fact is they're going to select a QB on Thursday night. So that will dominate the conversation. That is the important part of the Sam Darnold talker and how he works in this offense. Josh McCown knows the guy, former teammates. That's all good. That's cool. And let's give the idea that maybe we're starting 2024 with Sam Darnold under center, regardless of what happens on Thursday night of the draft. Okay, that's not fine in the context of long term. It is in the context of this regime, with all of the good things that they have done in terms of getting the team younger, getting the team more financial flexibility. The one place that they've failed miserably at so far has been the draft. And so if they're able to ace that thing on Thursday night, get a QB of the future, you're no longer worried about the $10 million in relation to Sam Darnold. And maybe Sam Darnold can come in and win you a couple of games. At the least, be a pretty nice backup at some point, given some of the quarterback issues that we've endured over the last, 6-7 months post-Kirk injury. So Paul Charchi, and I'm waiting for him to get back to me. I got some text messages on Kirk, and it made me think of this, because a lot of people have been telling me, somebody check on Charch. What's going on with Charch? Davenport of love for Paul Charchian. So I'm excited to have Paul Charchian on tomorrow because he can explain himself. So let me go back. Let's start here. Happy Free Agent Day is what he put out on X yesterday morning. Who else is excited to kick off another decade of this? And then he proceeded to take a screenshot. I assume he Googled Vikings starting quarterbacks, and he found a Wikipedia page. It's Brad Johnson and Dante in 2005, all the way up to Case Keenum and Bradford in 2017. Ooh, Kelly Holcomb and Brooks Bollinger. That was fun. Brooks Bollinger's greatest moment in NFL history is him dropping back and handing off to Adrian Peterson, as Adrian Peterson went for 296 against the San Diego Chargers and Norv's team in 2007. So Brooks Bollinger. Can't laugh about that. Gus Frerotte. We get all that, right? So that's where he started out. Because again, it's always been pinned that Kirk Cousins is either the financial anchor of this team, that he is dragging everybody to the bottom of the ocean with him just so that he can get his guaranteed dollars, and you can't do anything around it. Well, we could draft a hell of a lot better than we have, but beside the point. Or on the other side of it, it is, well, this guy can win a Super Bowl if we surround him with all of those things. So polarizing conversations. But Charch has lost his damn mind. He hits us with this. Now, Charch is camping. I don't know exactly where in the wilderness Charchian is at this particular juncture. But 8 hours ago means that for us, local time, it's 2:48 in the morning. So I don't know if he got up to take a peek at the stars or where exactly this took place. But he hit us with this as Sam Darnold. Speaking of Sam Darnold, this is your new starting QB, Vikings fans. You don't pay $10 million to a backup. Well, you shouldn't anyway.
Oh my gosh, you are above average at that.
Funny how inexpensive the QB position can be when you sign a player nobody else would dare put under center. I've been told 1,000 times. Wins are a quarterback stat. So here you go. Oh, come on, Charch. 56 career starts, 21 wins. We're back to the days of starting washed-up journeyman retreads. And that's how we like it in Minnesota.
Oh my gosh, you are above average at that.
Sleep easy, Vikings fans. You've got the quarterback you wanted and deserve.
Oh my gosh, you are above average at that.
What happened, Charch? Charch, we're here for you. We want to hug you. We love you. Charch lost his mind. Now, I'm not immune to having a couple of beverages and just firing off something, hitting send, and just letting nature take its course. And I enjoyed Kirk's time here. But that is unbelievable. And I have just received confirmation that Paul Charchian is going to be starting 9 to noon with me tomorrow. And I can't wait to read it for him so that he can listen to his own tweet and then maybe decide the emotion involved, maybe the lack of rationale involved. I can't wait to give my buddy Paul Charchian a hard time. I adore that man, but my goodness, what are we doing? But that is the sentiment, that he is not alone in that sentiment. Again, Sam Darnold. 1 year, $10 million. What are we doing as a franchise is what you're asking. Charge tweet or otherwise. His purpose here is to lessen the sting, lessen the burn as Kevin O'Connell goes out and gets his guy. Did you like the Nick Mullins experience? Now, I'm kind of split on that because I actually like Nick Mullins, and Nick Mullins will throw 400 yards, but he'll also ruin the game on the potential game-winning drive. He'll throw it to the other team, does it every time. That's mildly problematic. And then there's Jaron Hall. Jaron Hall, rookie. I saw someone text, what happened to the steal of the draft last year, guys? Huh? What about Jaron, the BYU guy? Maybe not the steal of the draft. At some point, I'm sure that he was referring to something said 9 to noon. Like, I can't control everything that's said during this time slot, okay? Again, we go off of feeling quite a bit. Sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong. Jaron Hall, promising look, right? The drive, he hits Johnny Munt uncovered. I think Alexander Madison caught like a 50-yard pass on that drive. Gets a concussion at the goal line in Atlanta. And a Pastronaut was born. A Pastronaut that isn't very good passing and has never been to the moon. So those two things. But that was when the Josh Dobbs era. So that's only 2 drives. Didn't get to see much. Then just putting him out there against Green Bay on New Year's Eve was just disastrous from the get-go, and it never worked. So what about those guys? That's why Sam Darnold is here, because that didn't go well. And so on Thursday night, KOC is going to take a big swing. He's going to go get his guy. And then that is where, from the shopping spree to future cap space and all of those things, starting on Thursday night, that is when you officially are sitting down in session, and it is the true judgment period of things for this regime. And it starts with that guy they get on Thursday night. And I absolutely can't wait for it. When we come back, I'm going to get some more text messages that I actually want to read this time, and then a couple of talkbacks. And as we remember Kirk, what are we remembering? What was Charch tweeting about? Well, I'll run through a few things with you in regard to the past 6 seasons as we head our way through the final hour here. Still looking for fresh news as it hits you, of course. You heard about Grenard and Van Ginkel and Cashman yesterday, the kicker, Darnold and Aaron Jones. You've heard that Jordan Hicks is headed to Cleveland. Marcus Davenport getting $6.5 million. Whew, man, that money machine is just open for business for Mr. Davenport after what we experienced. Classic snark. Of course, he'll make every dance next year for the Lions. But remembering some things that we saw over the last 6 years, good times and bad times, half and half is Kirk's nickname from my standpoint. We'll talk about all of that when we return 9 to noon on the Fan.
I just wanted to hear you guys' thought on wide receiver 3 and 4. And is Hawkinson going to be ready, or what are we going to do there besides Johnny Munt and Josh Oliver?
Yeah, it's a fair question. And, you know, and to that talkback last segment, I apologize for not answering it. I don't have even at this stage a take or insight in terms of KJ Osborne. Love what he offered the team, and he was very clutch, as the talkback noted last segment. But in this sense, I remember at the end of the season, he even said it in kind of those exit little pressers, the locker room bits that members of the media can take part in before players clean out their lockers and leave town. He was excited for the chance to enter this period and find a contract that would be life-changing money for him and his family. And so props to KJ. Would I like KJ to stay? Absolutely. What is that going to cost? I have no idea. You see, I think there was news, and I'm scrambling to find it now, that Darnell Mooney might be headed to the Falcons. So now he's going to be catching passes from Kirk Cousins. We'll see if Darnell Mooney can return maybe to his first-year form, that 2020 wide receiver draft that is so highly touted. But so in terms of what's next for KJ, I would expect that he is elsewhere. And you see some of the deals. This isn't the most highlighted free agent class of wideouts. Calvin Ridley, I believe, is still available unless news has escaped me. I'm not immune to missing news that other teams are doing things that don't include my squad. But with KJ, loved him here. But if Brandon Powell, if it's a choice between those two and you're getting some punt returning and some other things, that might have to be a concession you make versus giving free agent cash to KJ. And to that most recent talkbacks point, it is going to be Johnny Munt and Josh Oliver and Nick Muse. Don't forget about Nick Muse. I believe he was re-upped within the last couple of weeks. They extended him or restructured, did something. So Nick Muse, that's going to be your 3 tight end mix, I believe. And the draft can tell a story, and maybe there's a free agent addition that they make, something, might you say, on the value side of things that they could do that changes that between now and the beginning of 2024. But, all those reports, I mean, I'm not going to rehab with TJ Hawkinson, so I don't know exactly where he's at this point, but I've seen he could be maybe back within the first few weeks of the season. I've heard, the first month's out of the mix. I've seen reports that will he be back by Thanksgiving? I mean, it's just across the spectrum in terms of estimates and all of those things that have outlined where things sit with TJ. So it's, Munt and Muse and Oliver is not an oh my situation. You're definitely you're rooting for a quick rehab, return to form, and return to the field for TJ Hawkinson. But thanks again for all the talkbacks. We're going to be doing this again tomorrow. I do have Paul Charchian out of the gate at 9:02 tomorrow, so we're going to address that right away. Manana, can't wait for that. Florio 9:35. Looking forward to hearing everything and maybe digging deep into some of these contractual details and some other bits that are happening across the NFL, not just in Minnesota. And Alec Lewis of The Athletic, he's going to be in studio for an hour. Just got to figure out which hour that is. So looking forward to all of that. Your talkbacks and text tomorrow. But to the text line itself, kind of a theme that I was seeing here as all of you were nice enough to fire them off, 64686. Nordo, no one is going to remember Kirk for winning on the field. Boy, oh boy, how on earth will we ever be able to find a QB with a better win percentage than 270 against winning teams? Dan from sunny Florida. Does the cap hit of $28+ million basically get added to the $10 million Darnold will get? So technically they're paying $38 million for 1 year QB pay, or does it work differently? Dan, so the 28 and change, I think it's 28.5. That is on the 2024 cap. And so you're paying, Darnold doesn't get that 28, but it does work against the cap this year. But then it's gone. Then that's, the cliff, the financial cliff, and Daniil Hunter. I mentioned it with Ben that I think that the Texans are a terrific spot for him, and then you can make the obvious connection to his hometown, Katy, Texas, a suburb of Houston. If he was to go there, or at least if he's not back, then an additional 14.5. So if you go to over the cap or you go to spot rack, either of those spots actually include those numbers in the Vikings 2024 cap. So you'll see, and it's an awful number. It is. The void year situation with this team and what they've had to weed themselves through with veteran contracts, re-upping guys, falling in love with your draft picks to such a degree that not only were you giving guys more time maybe than you should have, but then you were doing whatever you could to keep them in free agency. The void year problem with this team has been immense. And so in 2024, that's what's, again, the drafting with this regime, not good. I would actually say awful thus far, save for the Addison pick. Jordan Addison, turned out to be pretty good. The drafting has been bad, but the re-navigating financially with this team puts them in a spot where a year from now, we have the spending spree this year. We could, if they do it right, have a badass rookie QB entering his second year on a rookie deal. You could have Justin Jefferson to a long-term extension, and you could still have $50 million or more in free agent cash. That's what's on the line. So when I think about, well, what do they need to do to get this thing over the top? Draft. And that's when the judgment period starts, from my standpoint. It's going to be in late April. Here's Brett from Fancato. Kirk said it all last year. It's not about the money, but what it represents. Meaning the money represents where he ranks as a QB. So it's not about winning, it's about status. I don't agree with that, Brett. But I will say, when we, and again, whether it's not about money, it's what it represents, or the, okay, Kirk, you're just going to go and it's going to be a few $1 million. You're leaving everything here. You're leaving Kohl's. Well, they've probably got those down there. You're leaving Barnes & Noble. Well, they got some of those down there. But you're leaving an amazing community that has rallied behind you for 6 years. You're leaving all that for an extra few $1 million a year. The way that it's feeling with me is that, I said it during the opening hour, I don't think this was a few $1 million a year. You should be shocked by the money that Atlanta gave him. Great question that PA, kind of posed to Gessling during the early 10 a.m. hour. Who are they bidding against? This kind of feels that we eventually, and I'm hoping we find out at some point what the Vikings were finally, what their sticking point was financially. I think we're talking about 30, 40, maybe more million in guaranteed money that the Vikings weren't willing to guarantee, that the Falcons were. That Arthur Blank just rolled in there and said, get this done. I'm so tired of this. No, this is awful. I'm in my 80s. I know what 2016 felt like. We were up 28-3, and we completely blew it. We were so close. Couldn't get it done. Now, I don't want to hear Kirk's name in any other capacity or reasoning outside of he's in town to sign this on Wednesday afternoon. Just get it done. Get it done. Pay him, whatever he wants. It's almost to that extreme. It feels like an air of desperation, if you will, regarding the way that this contract situation and ultimately the negotiating period took place, which goes the Diana Rossini tweet. In 90 minutes, they can begin negotiations with Kirk Cousins. I saw that yesterday morning. Yeah, as if they waited until 11 a.m. yesterday morning. It was at 11 a.m. Central Time. They waited, not a minute prior, to begin negotiating a $180 million contract. Jason and Egan. Atlanta did us a solid. Time for Kwesi to finish what he started last year. We proved we couldn't build a team around that QB contract. And so now I'll say this, Jason, before I read the rest of it, that's on us. See, that's kind of the key. Again, things get so personal with these players in some respects. Part of it's on us. We haven't drafted well here as a franchise in nearly a decade. So it's not necessarily that Kirk was just this greedy, just awful individual that, took everything from everybody else. Some of it, we needed to produce better talent via the draft. He came into a ready-made team, which is true, after 2017, rather. We went backwards. He made $185 million, 2 playoff trips, 1 playoff win, some fancy stats. Man, things have turned negative. If we were getting text messages on Kirk 3 weeks ago, Brett, I swear to you, if we can just work this out, best case scenario, we bring Kirk back and we draft that guy on the Thursday night. Sam Darnold it just wasn't even a twinkle in the eyes of any Vikings fans. Now it's a twinkle is certainly the ire, it feels like.
It does feel natural, though, that the last thing Kirk is polarizing the Vikings fan base again, which is, I think, sums up his run here in Minnesota. I mean, I've never seen a quarterback just so divisive where people have picked their sides and that's it. You've got your Kirk obos and your Kirk haters, and I think we're seeing it one more time on the way out.
Well, it's super funny, too, because as soon as Washington was doing this, when he was getting franchise tagged each season, Redskins fans, now Commanders, They were doing the exact same thing that Vikings fans were doing not only in 2018, welcome to the covenant, my goodness, $84 million, 3 years guaranteed, what the hell are we doing? To now on the back end, the good, the bad, the ugly, everyone's picked a side, and it's not pretty. Like Kirk a lot, gave his QB 6 years, yep, gave him money to succeed, one division, yeah, see, that's the sentiment. It's turned from, well, but now here's this. Kirk wouldn't have had an opportunity, here's another text, to take that deal if Cam did his job. Cam is in Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. You can't let a starting QB go to the last year of his deal without a new contract in place. I agree if you want to keep him here. Kirk should have never gotten to this season without a new deal if they wanted him. Huge risk. The result was the worst-case scenario. Kirk got hurt. Vikings lost all their leverage with him as an asset when that happened. I think that this was a foregone conclusion to the texter's point. That's why we were kind of framing it up last week prior to really getting any news last week, in that it feels like this was inevitable as soon as they couldn't get something done at the end of last year. When they couldn't, a year ago this time, when whether it was term, Vikings were going to do 2 years, he wanted 3 years, percentage of guaranteed cash, he had done guaranteed money every step of the way during his time here, so that was probably going to be part of the equation. Maybe there was a no trade clause in the mix, etc. When they didn't get that done, this did kind of feel like that was the moment he left Minnesota. Not physically, but in some ways, certainly contractually, that it was over. And then I'm sitting here on the outside, just being a rube, and I'm thinking to myself, it was either the Vikings put their foot down and created a standard a year ago, he wouldn't meet it, and maybe post-injury then, okay, well, are you interested in it now? And just kind of knowing and feeling out how things were. Or was it maybe Kwesi Adofo-Mensah did make a massive blunder? And there is some of that sentiment out there. I can't decide which it is, because now I'm stuck in hindsight. He tore his Achilles. So in some ways, will this end up being a positive that we didn't sign him? If we don't make a play in the draft, then this whole situation certainly wears very poorly on the front of this regime. So it does now come down to the draft, as I was mentioning. So I wish I knew what they would have offered him then, because I've heard, well, obviously he would have taken that deal. Would he have? What was the guaranteed money? What was the 2-year cash in Kirk's pocket a year ago that he was interested in and the Vikes wouldn't do? What was that number? And how different is it than the number that at the 11th hour the Vikings were willing to offer Kirk, which ultimately I believe was massively dwarfed and in the shadow of this mountain of cash that the Falcons just gave him? But I totally agree with you from the standpoint that all of these things coming to a head at once is brutal. And so without knowing those numbers, I can't necessarily say it was a blunder without necessarily knowing the intentions. Although in some ways I know the intentions. I know that the team wanted to draft a QB. And so Kirk, in some ways, let's say if dollars are the same, he goes to Atlanta, you're our guy. You stay in Minnesota, you're our guy, but we are absolutely going to move up in the draft. We're going to do whatever it takes to get Drake May or J.J. McCarthy or Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams. Penix. Let's just throw Penix in there. Who knows? Probably won't have to trade up for Spencer Rattler. But I also don't think he's in the cards. But we'll see. But to that end, what would you choose? Same dollars. You know that you're the sheriff in one city. Your days are numbered from the get-go if you stay in the one you're in. So in the end, the money won out. But it wasn't just a few million. It was a lot of millions. And so now Kirk moves on. And as will we. We're going to pause. Final segment. Kind of wrap things up. Take a look maybe if anything's popping throughout the NFL, where we stand as the Minnesota Vikings. Bodies in, bodies out. It's a free agency frenzy. And you're listening to 9 to Noon right here on The Fan.
Darnold is not going to be our savior by any means, but he was never given a great chance. In a great offense. I mean, Carolina, he actually put together some decent starts a few years ago. And when he was with the Jets, he had zero chance because of the horrible coaching. I'm not saying the guy is going to be great, but he should be a decent stopgap. Yeah, better than Zach Wilson.
Hold on here. That's either one of our buddies who listen to 9 to Noon in an 18-wheeler, or that's hashtag fan on the farm. Did you hear that humming in the background?
Little tractor talkback action.
Tractor talkback. Somebody's getting something done today. That's good. And it appears, at least as of the moment, as we get to lunchtime, the Vikings have not gotten anything else done. I like where his head's at in some ways with the Sam Darnold thing. I'm not going to try and overhype Sam Darnold. It's not exciting. Anybody who is not excited by that, that's okay. But again, he's also not the end game. So I hope people are keeping that in perspective, that he can go in and he can win you a couple of games. He could be a very high-end backup. That's the point, is that you don't want to have to endure what we endured, putting a Jaron Hall in a spot he wasn't ready for, putting Mullins in a spot to throw the game away for you. You don't want to be caught with your pants down in a moment like that. Paul Charchian opens the show tomorrow at 9:02. Speaking of pants down. Saw this via the text line. Darnold could be a wild card. He has the talent, similar to the talkback you just heard, but maybe never got the coaching. He was with the Jets and Panthers. It took Rich Gannon.
Oh my gosh, above average at that.
Several years before he found the right situation to flourish. That is accurate. The connection to Rich Gannon. Now, if you remember, 2021, Matt Rule's Carolina Panthers with the, was it the final minute of the game? I used to have the quote that I'd play once in a while, because 2021 was the year where the Vikings, 2022, you won all those one-score games. 2021 was where you lost all of them. And there was a great quote from PA as the Carolina Panthers, late stages of the fourth quarter, it was something like, man, if Sam Darnold and the Panthers take this team 96 yards and tie this game up, just shut the whole thing down. It was in there somewhere, something like that. Search with the numbers 96. Maybe you'd find it. Never mind. But then they do, of course. Robbie Anderson gets the touchdown, and they tie the game. And that would lead to a positive Kirk Cousins moment. Kirk Cousins, 27 yards. KJ Osborne, touchdown. Vikings beat the Panthers 34-28. It now appears one is definitely not on the team moving forward. And for KJ Osborne, we'll see what the future holds. And I root for KJ. I can't get mad at the way these leagues work, that these guys are out there trying to get paid as much as they are. And again, that's why it's so difficult to not get personal, because they are our players. This is our team and those things. I've just never, who should get the money? The owners? We have season tickets. We buy the jerseys. We pay for the $14 beers. We have the TV packages. They're going to get a TV check in the mail like this late April or May for like $350 or $400 million. Just part of the TV deal. So again, the money tree is flush. Well, who's going to get to pick that fruit? I want the players to be the ones getting paid. And so it stinks, but I can't make it personal, even as big and as weird and just astronomical these numbers are. As it gets to that. As we wrap up 9 to noon, I have not heard of any new transactions, but if you are just tuning in, Gophers Hoops Weekly with Ben Johnson will follow us, and then Pete Bursich is going to be filling in for comment today. So 2 more hours, and I've just been informed Pete Bursich, heavy on the Bears, a couple of picks in the top 10. He's going to have Bears Vox Jeff Joniak join for some intel on the Bears. Jeff's awesome. And then Courtney Cronin, VSPN, ESPN Radio. She's going to be joining, covers the Bears out there now, of course. So Courtney Cronin and Jeff Joniak.
Another add Robert Smith.
And Robert Smith.
There you go.
How about that? So you got a full show, and that's 2 hours from 1 to 3 p.m. With Pete Bursich. So if something pops during that point, you'll hear about it with Pete. But Jonathan Grenard, that was the first one. Then you heard about Andrew Ginkel. Again, the focus on the defense here, fairly obvious early. Blake Cashman, EP go crazy. Then he's a Gopher. Then he's a Jet. Then he's a Texan. And now he's a Viking. Blake Barrett was in studio. I believe Institute for Athletes represents Mr. Cashman. Then you get Sam Darnold, the 1 for 10. Sam Darnold. And then Aaron Jones, which is awesome. Something I do want to get into tomorrow as we wrap up 9 to noon is the importance of the running game moving forward. And it's not like I'm trying to be ultra hard on KOC here, but the running game's terrible. It's not efficient. It's not effective. It's not reliable in any sense of the word. And if we're ever going to talk in these massive overtures about how elite this offense is going to be, go get J.J. McCarthy or Drake May and make them a star. You have to run the ball. And so I'm excited about a 29-year-old who doesn't have as much tread on his tires as you would think, and a guy that could potentially match up, at least for a year. It's a 1-year, $7 million deal. Aaron Jones with Ty Chandler. The running game with Kirk Cousins mattered a ton, and now he's got Bijan down in Atlanta. The running game means just that much more with one of those rookies that'll hopefully be splashing for the purple in 2024. So put an emphasis on that. Thank you so much to everybody for listening. Ben Gessling being in studio, PA down in LA for half the show, me, Nordo, taking over after that, and Brett producing. Everybody have a great afternoon. Keep it here for all free agent-related news on The Fan.